going on, YouTube universe? Welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, and today we are diving into our tips early, reflecting on round 2 before having a look ahead at round 3. And I slipped back into my old ways, my old habits. It was hard pill to swallow, I can tell you that much. After round 1, I was buzzing, I was up and about, not just because Richmond won, but I finally got a decent round of footy tipping in, which is few and far between given the last couple of years of competitions I have held when it comes to my own personal tips, and we fell short of the mark yet again, only managing to tip 4 out of 8, and that reflects as follows. We went with Hawthorn over Carlton on Thursday night at the MCG. We tipped them by 14, they got the job done by 20, and looked like the far superior team throughout the entire night. These Hollywood Hawks, they might actually have the goods this year. I might be discrediting them just a little bit. On Friday night, MCG, 100-year anniversary for Western Bulldogs, or Footscray, as they went for that night, and the Bulldogs fell short by 6 points in a game that was incredibly well played by both teams, but I feel was marred by umpiring decisions that didn't go either way. It really felt like the umpiring had hijacked a really good game of football. And I put a post out during the week talking about that, and I kind of hinted more so at the fact that I was maybe saying the Bulldogs were robbed and Collingwood got a better rub of the green. Collingwood, I still would have probably won this game without decisions going their way. It's just very upsetting, I feel, especially in the late moments, to see both teams not getting things paid their way, and trust me, it happened to both teams, not just the one. We then go to Saturday afternoon, the first of which was at the MCG with Essendon hosting Adelaide, and Adelaide shook an MCG hoodoo to walk away 61-point victors. And that's not to discredit Essendon, because they managed to kick 100 points themselves. So 100, 161. We're seeing some really big margins this year, but also winnable margins from the losing teams. So I feel so far, with 3 rounds in the books, even though the first round only had two games played, we're seeing a better quality of football by most teams that were almost written off, I feel, early on. So Adelaide picking up another really solid win, and this one, obviously, I feel meaning more because it was away from home, and it broke that losing streak they were on at the MCG. Down at Adelaide Oval, Port Adelaide hosting Richmond. I went with Richmond. This is the first blemish of my weekend. I really felt that confidence would have been about, there would have been a buzz, we would have taken in a lot of team morale, and it happened all over again. Port Adelaide got the jump that Carlton got on us the week prior, and there was just no clawing back. I mean, we had a really good second half, especially the last quarter, but you could argue Port Adelaide had taken their foot off the gas at that point in time. But we were to expect this from Richmond this year. I mean, a lot of people said we weren't going to win a game. We've already ticked that off our list, and I'm going into this season knowing there are going to be 10+ goal losses, most weeks. But to see some of the kids still stand tall and have a crack really made me happy as a supporter. And as a supporter in a rebuild, just seeing the future stand tall early, it's what it's all about. Second blemish of the weekend, we tipped Geelong to defeat St Kilda, and St Kilda came out in emphatic form. Could have won by a hell of a lot more. Their lead was almost 40+ points at one stage, but they walk away 7-point victors in a game that set a lot of records involving these two teams. It is the first quarter differential score-wise that has been that big since 2001, and there are some other stats, team stats total by the end of the game, that we haven't seen Chris Scott fail to achieve in his entire, career coaching Geelong. So it was very haphazard for the Cats this particular game. They were valiant to fight as hard as they did, especially with somebody like Tom Stewart subbed out of the game incredibly early. But credit where it's due, St Kilda, they looked good. We then move on down to the Gabba. First of 3 on Sunday. And West Coast looked like pulling off the heist of the century. They came out absolutely at the throats of the Lions. This was a different West Coast. People were starting to think, has the game plan from Mini McQualter already set in? No, because the reigning premiers found a way and they managed to walk away with, almost a 20-point victory. And, I don't know whether this is a conversation of West Coast were a better team, but they faded away because they're still young and they've got new things in place, or whether Brisbane are just a little bit of ring rust because of obviously a less of a pre-season, because they are the premiers and, you know, they had a longer run than other teams, and they're just starting to get into the motion of things. But when Brisbane are firing, they still look one of the best, if not the best, in the competition, so I'm not writing them off at all. This was a really good win by them. Speaking of good wins, Marvel Stadium, North taking on Melbourne. Heading into this game, when I did my tipping last week, I said not to discredit North Melbourne in this game. It was very winnable for them. I did not expect them to come out and win it by over 10 goals. This was absolutely huge. They got monstered in the ruck. Cherry absolutely towed Max Gawn up, and then Simon Goodwin came out in the press conference post-game saying that Max Gawn's been dealing with something personal and it's been weighing on him. This is where I pose a question, because had Melbourne have won, we'd probably never find out about that, and we hear about how Max Gawn has overcome. But now there's excuses happening. So I don't know whether that's just old Simon Goodwin back to his tricks again, not being able to accept defeat, and there's always a reason for shit happening. But this is one of the best wins I've seen North Melbourne have in a very long time, and it really glues together the fact that all of these recruits they've been picking up in trades and how they've recruited all these young kids through the draft. They are really starting to build a team here. This is a very good watch if you're a shin boner. And the very last game of the round, Fremantle hosting Sydney at Optus Stadium. If there were about 3 or 4 seconds left on the clock, I think Fremantle pinched this one after the siren, because just as the siren goes, Jaya Miss takes a mark up forward. It doesn't count because the siren's already gone. Probably shouldn't have been the case anyway, because I felt Fremantle had control of this game for most of it, and then Sydney just found a way, and they really needed to, because this is Sydney's first win of the year. They really needed to dig deep. But on the flip side of that, I touted Fremantle as a potential top 4, top 5 finisher here, and they get to win a game. So, when's it going to come, Freo? Stop dick teasing. But as I said, 4 out of 8, a 50% strike rate for myself. There were, however, though, a handful that did way better than I did. 6 out of 8 was the most correct amount of tips tipped by anybody in my tipping competition this particular week. So congratulations must go to Crackerjack06, Fulvio, Macca0303, Charles Lowe, JazzSky13, and the blooper reel, some of which have been around since I've been doing my tipping competitions over on my gaming channel before this even became a thing. So congratulations to all 6 of you for tipping 6 out of 8, the most correct this weekend. And as we look at the total overall leaderboard, an extra congratulations must go to JazzSky13, who leads the competition by 1 singular tip on 16, followed by some 15s and plenty of 14s, and let's just discredit the fact that I'm sitting 28th out of 46. Before we move on as well, if you want to join the tipping competition, it is free to do so. There is no small fine print for you to read in any contracts or obligations. Link in the description down below will take you to the landing page. Use the competition code to join. Get on board, have a good time, get your tips in. At the end of the year, we'll throw some prizes around and we'll just make a good year of it. I'm wanting to build on these competitions each and every year, and currently 46, while it doesn't seem like much to some, is the biggest competition we have ran since the Hip and Shoulder has kicked off. So thank you all for getting behind it, and as I said, still plenty of time to join, so if you want to, make sure you get it done. Looking at the tips this week, these are the popular tips heading into the round. We have Port Adelaide to defeat Essendon by an average margin of 19 points. We have Carlton to defeat the Bulldogs, Melbourne to defeat the Gold Coast, St Kilda to defeat Richmond, Hawthorn to defeat GWS, Brisbane to defeat Geelong, Adelaide to defeat North Melbourne, and Fremantle to defeat West Coast. However, I'm going to make some changes, and they are tentative to change because this is early for me. I don't normally drop my tipping videos this early on in the week. I kind of wait for team announcements and kind of some little murmurs to happen during the week. So all my tips, when I do them this early, are going to be tentative and open to change depending on when team lists drop. Obviously for Thursday night games, that is Wednesday night, and then Thursday night the rest of the teams are announced. I do think Port Adelaide are going to defeat Essendon on Thursday night. I think it's going to be by the tune of 26 points. Essendon have been, for lack of a better word, valiant in defeat, I suppose. They just fall short to Hawthorn 2 weeks ago. They get done by 10 goals on the weekend, but still manage to find a way to score 100 points, so they're kicking winning margins. But Port Adelaide, absolutely embarrassed 2 weeks ago by Collingwood, back on their home deck this past weekend, made a meal of Richmond, and I think they come down to continue on that streak. They've got a newfound belief about themselves. People are starting to find some form. Connor Rosey leading like an absolute champion. I think Port Adelaide get it done quite comfortably against Essendon, and I think where you draw the line in the sand is Essendon are functioning without a forward line. Peter Wright's going to be out for another month due to an ankle. 5 to 6 weeks away for Kyle Langford coming back from a hamstring. We know they traded Jake Stringer. They've had to turn to a pre-season supplementary pick to be their full forward and to stand tall. Kako can't do it all on his own. Caddy is still finding his feet in many ways. So this is still a very young, untried forward line that are trying to piece pieces together. And I think Port Adelaide, especially their defensive 50, can pick that forward line apart. And I think that's where the difference is going to be. Friday night, Marvel Stadium, Carlton taking on the Bulldogs. And while the vast majority are going Carlton, I'm going to lock in the Bulldogs for the win here. When we look... It's not letting me change. But there we go. It let me change. Good. Thank you. So, on paper, Carlton have a better midfield than the Bulldogs going in. So, when you've got the likes of Patrick Cripps, Chera, Walsh, you've got TDK in the ruck, you'd think they'd get the job done. But Tim English, Tom Liberatore, Ed Richards, Joel Frazier coming in as like a second-year, third-year player, I feel the Bulldogs collectively as a midfield have shown more than what Carlton have, because Carlton, let's face it, the last couple of weeks, if it hasn't been De Koning getting off the chain in the ruck and it hasn't been Cripps trying to carry the team on his back, there's been some very lackluster performances that haven't lived up to expectation through that midfield. I think where Carlton have an edge is if Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow both play this game, because teams over the last few weeks have been able to lock down one, but we're yet to see both of those forwards play together in 2025. So if we have both play, one of them drags the defender out, one of them gets one-on-one, I feel that's where the difference is made. So this is probably one of those games that is going to be tentative to team announcements, but I'm happy to lock the Bulldogs in based on what I saw them do against Collingwood versus how Carlton performed this past week against Hawthorn. That's just my opinion. Moving on to Saturday, MCG. Melbourne taking on the Gold Coast. I am very tempted to go the Gold Coast here. They're coming off of a break. It could be detrimental to some, but when you have players underperforming at Melbourne, you've got now know that Max Gawn's dealing with a personal matter. Is that a personal matter that's going to fix itself straight away? Is it going to carry on for weeks? Gold Coast coming off fresh, looking for another scalp after they took a really big win against West Coast at West Coast. Wouldn't put it past the Gold Coast to get the job done this week against the Demons. St Kilda playing Richmond at Marvel Stadium. My heart really wants Richmond to win this one. I feel even though St Kilda played a really great game against Geelong, I feel this is a very winnable game for Richmond if Richmond decide to rock up and play like they did round one. I'm going to tip St Kilda though. If Richmond want to throw a spanner in the works and upset the apple cart and cost me a tip here, I'm more than happy for them to do so, but I can't back against St Kilda the way they played against Geelong, coming up a very young and inexperienced Richmond team. Even though Tom Lynch is back in, could make things a little bit different because we saw the impact Tom Lynch had just around the contest when it came to defeating Carlton. So who knows? I'm just looking forward to a good game of football. Down at Tasmania, we have Hawthorn hosting GWS. GWS, obviously the other team coming off of the bye. While Hawthorn have the edge down in Tassie, I'm tempted to go GWS, because I think the Orange Tsunami might be too much for that defensive core of Hawthorn to withhold, because it's run and carry. They don't set themselves up to be intercepted all too much, and I think if they take that out of the defensive 50 of Hawthorn, that's where GWS can have the edge. They just link up with those handballs. These are two teams that play very similar styles of football. So I felt like Donald Trump there. Two teams playing very similar roles. Okay, it's going to be a great game. It's going to be great. They're going to build a wall down the middle. Okay, it's going to be great. Okay, it's going to be great. But I'm going with GWS. Brisbane hosting Geelong Saturday night at the Gabba. I think Brisbane get it done against Geelong at home. They're slow to find their feet, but as I said, maybe a little bit of ring rust because they've had less of a pre-season. Geelong, valiant in defeat. Again, I don't like using that term, but they came back incredibly strong against St Kilda, given they were 40-odd points down in that game. They could push Brisbane to their limits here, and if they want to establish themselves early as a team to watch, this is probably a must-win game for Geelong. But then again, it's a must-win game for Brisbane because they're defending this premiership. They need to show they can take it to the better teams. Struggled early against West Coast. If you give Geelong that much of a gap, I don't think you close it. So Brisbane needs to get the jump on the Cats early if they want to secure this win. Adelaide are hosting North Melbourne on Sunday afternoon down at Adelaide Oval. North Melbourne had a very good game, but they're coming up against an Adelaide team that has had 2 back-to-back wins in very big ways. They've taken on St Kilda, they've taken on Essendon. You could argue those teams are maybe a little higher up the ranks when it comes to where we expected teams to land this year. Don't discredit North Melbourne. They could have an upset in them. I think this is going to be a great contest, but I think Adelaide get over the line in this one at home. And the final game of the round is at Optus Stadium. Fremantle have something to prove here. They need to stop being a laughingstock. They need to show they can win games. They need to win this derby and win it good. I feel there is an upset looming within West Coast here. I really do, but I think the Purple Haze snuffs that out and gets their first win of the season. So just having a little bit of a look-see-loo, we're going with Port Adelaide, Western Bulldogs, Gold Coast, St Kilda, GWS, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Fremantle. As I said, plenty of time to still join the tipping competition. Link is down below. Competition code is down below as well. Do hit that like button if you enjoy what I'm doing. Do leave a comment with different types of content you would like to see. I am open to all recommendations you throw my way. And if you want to join the community we are building here, hit that subscribe button down below. As I mentioned in my previous video, we have just surpassed our first 100 subscribers here on the Hip and Shoulder. Thank you all so much for getting me there. I always feel as a content creator, the first 100 is the hardest hurdle to climb, and now we've climbed it and we've jumped over it. We now aim for 1,000, and then we aim for 2, and then we aim for 5, then we go for 10, so on, so forth. Let's really, take this channel and run with it. Let's make something of this. Let's make ourselves known within the AFL community. So as I said, do hit that like button, do spread the word, do hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. I appreciate it all. Thank you all so much for joining me for another video. Hopefully your teams can get up this weekend. I'm hoping Richmond can at least give us a better performance than what we saw against Port Adelaide. If they can put in a more spirited performance, I think myself and all the other Richmond fans out there will be very happy. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.